In this video, you're going to learn why you perform better in practice than games and what you can do about this. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, mental performance coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. Now, when you perform better in practice than you do in games, this can be very frustrating because you might start to see yourself as just a practice player. But here's the good news. If you are performing well in practice, then clearly you have the skills to succeed. So what's to blame? Well, there's probably a mental block that's keeping you from performing well in games, like you do in practices. So what we can do is work on overcoming this mental block, which will then allow yourself to perform your best during games. Whenever I'm working with an athlete on this, the thing that I always like to tell them is, you have the skills, right? You already have the skills to succeed. What we're looking for is the key that's going to unlock your full potential during games, the key that allows you to just simply play. Now, there are three main mental blocks that we can kind of point to that are probably causing some of this disconnect. Number one is going to be some performance anxiety. You might get more anxious during performances. You might start to worry a little bit more about what's going to happen. The second one is the fear of failure. The fear of failure in sports means that you're afraid of making mistakes because of the consequences of making those mistakes. An example would be you don't want to make a mistake, you don't want to mess up because you don't want to get benched or you don't want to lose your starting spot. Now, if you are experiencing anxiety and fear, that's probably where that disconnect is coming to play because you're not experiencing so much of it during practices like you are in games. Now, the third reason is that you might be feeling more pressure. And the more pressure that you feel, the more expectations you place on yourself. During practices, what are your expectations? For the most part, they're probably along the lines of improving, of getting better, of focusing and doing drills so you can improve your mechanics. But during games, I've seen it time and time again where during games, this expectation is, I've got to be perfect. I have to play perfectly today. When you say that you have to perform perfectly today, you are setting yourself up for failure because you're probably not going to be perfect. So then what happens the first time you make a mistake? You probably get really down on yourself, really upset, and that's going to cause you, or at least lead to a greater possibility of you making more mistakes. Something else that happens when you experience this pressure is that you might play a little bit more timidly because if you don't want to make mistakes, because you want to play perfectly, then you might hold yourself back a little bit because you're more focused on not making mistakes than you are on actually succeeding. Those are the three mental blocks I see keeping athletes from performing well in games like they do in practices. Now, if you are experiencing this disconnect, what can you do about it? Well, the main thing that you can do is identify the reason that you're not performing well in games, and you want to work on overcoming it. So if you're experiencing a lot of fear, you want to work on overcoming that fear. The same thing with the anxiety or the pressure. Now, to overcome fear, you want to work on building your confidence. If you want to overcome anxiety, you also want to work on building confidence, but then you also want to work on developing more of a calm mindset. If you're dealing with a lot of pressure and expectations and you're just trying to perform perfectly, what you can do for that is set better objectives and expectations for the games that are going to actually put you in a better position to succeed. So what I've done in the description below is I put links to 3 different videos I've made that go into detail on overcoming performance anxiety, overcoming the fear of failure, and then also setting some performance objectives that are going to help you reduce those expectations. Now, the other option is if you are really struggling with this and it's getting very frustrating for you, then one-on-one mental performance coaching is going to help. With one-on-one mental performance coaching, I will work with you on really identifying the main cause that's keeping you from performing well in games like you do in practices. Then what we're going to do is using certain tools and techniques, work to overcome that block. And the cool thing about this is as we work to overcome that block, what we're actually doing is working on building more positive mental skills that over the long run are going to increase your performance. So if you're interested in one-on-one mental performance coaching to help you perform better in games like you do in practice, go ahead and click the link that I put in the description below. If you have any questions about the disconnect between performing well in games like you do in practices or any other sports psychology topic, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.